I think we've narrowed it down fairly well enough. Basically, we agreed that it was just going to be
no boards, no tokens,
99%. Oh, no.
No boards, no resources, no nothing like that. You know, small tokens for...
A card game is a game that's you play with cards. Hey, folks, welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Sam.
I'm JT.
And this is our bottom 5. That is to say, numbers 10 through 6 of our top 10 card games.
I didn't put anything you play with a normal deck of cards on here. Otherwise,
No,
five
I
of
didn't.
my
That's
top
a completely
10
different list.
Poker, pinochle, cribbage,
Yeah, that's a completely different
spades, all
list.
those would be on there too.
I have a little bit of a froggy throat, so I'll be using my Batman voice throughout the course. You'll excuse me for that, but I'm feeling all right. Don't worry about it. But let's go ahead and get to this. This is our bottom 5 card games. That is to say, games that have
cards.
Mostly cards
Yep.
for components.
At least 2 cards.
At least 2.
Yes, at least 2.
Let's hit it. Well, my number 10 is a game that I've only played once. But I feel like I've played it more than that because I've played its predecessor as well. But I have this one coming in the mail as we speak. This is called Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth. It's number 10 because that's where I am. I'm at number 10. It's a card game that you play with mostly cards.
Yeah.
Yes. There are boards and other pieces, but
And
where
towers and soldiers
and where you put all of those things is based on what?
Your cards.
Your card play. So that's why I go in ahead and put this. The only reason, and I mean this, that this is number 10 at this particular moment in time is because I've only played it once, and I'm waiting for my copy to get here. I suspect this will, in this category, rise to the top for a couple of different reasons. I really like the gameplay, I really like the theme, and it's Vincent Dutrait's artwork, which makes the game absolutely beautiful in my opinion. But that's just me, and that's my number 10, Lord of the Rings, Duel for Middle-earth. Nice.
It's a good way to start. My number 10 is a little oink game, ladder climbing card game called Scout.
Yeah.
In Scout, you're dealt your hand of cards, and you're trying to get points by taking bigger tricks than everybody else, or bigger pots than everybody else, basically. But and getting rid of your cards. But when you're dealt your cards, once you flip them up and spread them out, you don't get to shuffle them. You have one chance at the very beginning to flip them over because the other side has numbers on it as well. But how they sit is how you get to use them. And in this game, and like I said, it's a ladder climbing game, so whoever plays first, whoever plays after them has to play something bigger than what was played originally. So if I play a 1 and a 2 in a run, then the next person would have to play a bigger run than me, or in this game, sets are worth more. So if I played a 1 and a 2, Sam could play a 1, 2, 3, or a 4, 5, 6, as long as it's more cards than what I have. And then once it goes around, once you can't play, though, you have to then take one of the cards that's on the table, and you have to pay a point to put that card in your hand, but you get to slide it anywhere you want. So when you play out of your hand, you have to play adjacent cards. So if you want to play a pair of 5s, those 2 5s have to be sitting next to each other in your hand. So you might be working on getting cards out of the middle of between them so that they come together. You're going to be doing all kinds of strategic things, trying to get good runs and good sets in your hand so that you can get points. It's a very fun game. It's a very fast game. It's very easy to learn, and it's quite light, but it's very fun.
Yeah, I have been incredibly intrigued by the popularity of this game. Traveling around the different conventions that I did this year, I would venture to say that there wasn't a single group of people that I was, hanging around with at these different conventions that somebody didn't have a copy of Scout.
Yeah.
And somebody didn't say, hey, let's play Scout.
Sure.
Didn't mean that we always ended up playing Scout, but it was present.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's an easy one.
Yep, good pick.
Just carry a little tiny box. So.
Trick-taking games, there are so many of them out there. I like this one specifically because it feels like there are multiple trick-taking games slammed into it, because this trick-taking game, you can choose what you are trying to achieve. You can choose. Every round has a different kind of goal. That's all related to trick-taking, but maybe you're trying to get the least amount of this, or this round you're trying to get the most of it, or this round you're trying to get in the middle of it. This is called the Dwarf King. This is a really fun trick-taking game that has this mechanism in it that the person who takes a certain card in the previous round, I can't remember what card it is, I think it's the Goblin or something like that, of a certain suit, then you get to choose what the goal for the next round is going to be. And that's just how it goes. Person who gets this card in their hand is the one that leads. Person who plays this card gets to be the first player next turn. It's all of this different kind of stuff, but it feels like because of those little goal tiles that everybody else that you can choose between, you basically flip over a tile and there's a option on the top and there's an option on the bottom, and usually it's centered around a certain kind of suit, and you either want to get the most or you want to get the least, and you can choose which one you're going to do. I really like that. I think it's it works well to keep the game fresh instead of doing the same thing over and over and over again. So that's why I like the game Dwarf King, is because it feels like to me that there's multiple trick-taking games in one. But that's just me. The Dwarf King, my number 9.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. I think that in a lot of trick-taking games, for me, I want to say the science of trick-taking, the art of trick-taking, or the strategy of trick-taking, is knowing how the game plays and playing it extremely well as it plays. And so I've only played the Dwarf King a couple of times, but it seemed very inconsistent because of all of those changes, and that's a little frustrating. But I understand. My number 9, I know I've talked about this on the channel before, is a card game where you're creating a tableau of trees, and it's called Arboretum. Arboretum is probably the most take that of any other than a head-to-head type of fighting card game. Arboretum is very take that in the fact that on your turn you're drawing 2 cards into your hand. You have a hand of cards already, but you're drawing 2 cards into your hand. Everybody has their own personal discard pile, and then there's a main pile. You have to play 1 card down into your tableau, and then you have to discard a card. And all of the cards, there's multiple different colors trees, and they're all numbered. 1 to 9, 0 to, I think it's 1 to 8, I believe it is. You're trying to accomplish a couple different things. One is you're trying to get within the confines of your tableau, you're trying to get cards in numerical sequence, and you can follow that sequence however you want, but they have to be numerically sequenced to get points. And if they're the same color, they get more points. But you are scoring those colors at the end if you have the highest colored card of that left in your hand. So you're not only trying to create this tableau, but you have to keep one of those cards in your hand so that you can score it at the end of the game. So I can't just blow out a bunch of brown cards. If I don't have a brown card in my hand at the end of the game, I don't get a score. So if Sam knows that, he's not going to discard that last brown card that I need so that I can actually score my big old combination.
Sure.
So it's very, very tight. It's very intense on if I discard this card, who's going to need it? What are they going to do with it?
Yeah.
And a card will discard for you 2 turns ahead, and you're like, oh, I can't wait to get that card because it's perfect. I need to keep it in my hand. There's all these really cool things. You're creating this tableau. You're sequencing these cards, and it's just a really tight, stressful fight from start to finish, and I love it.
It says tight, stressful fight.
That is Arboretum.
All right, cool. Well, my number 8 is kind of the opposite of a tight, stressful fight. There is a little bit of stress in there, but it's super light, but it is also very enjoyable. This one's called Valbara. Valbara is a game where where all of the players have the same deck of cards. In other words, I think there are 12 cards in their hand. Each card has a different character. Each character has a different number 1 through 12, and then each character has a special ability that you can play. And so what you're going to have, I believe it's 3 cards in your hand at the beginning of every turn, and everybody's going to simultaneously choose one of those and then flip it over. And going in numerical order from smallest to largest, that's the turn order that you get to choose from a table or a market of cards that are out there, and you're trying to build up and it's set collection. You're trying to collect different sets of lands that you're going to score. Now, instead of waiting to score everything at the end of the game, everything scores as you're playing through the game. So this kind of land might score differently than this type of land. So this land might give you just straight up points. This kind of land will give you a number of points equal to how many copies of it that you and your neighbors have in their tableaus. Those kinds of different things. And you're just going through a number of rounds until, I believe, the deck runs out, and you're scoring. Whoever has the most points at the end of all that wins. It is a little, I guess you could say, tight because if I some of these different cards, some of the cards that you have in your hand are much more advantageous if you're the only one that plays it.
Sure.
But if somebody else plays at the same time, it's not as good. So there's the tension, because you know that everybody has the same things in their hands, or in their decks, but what's in everybody's hands specifically? Once you play a card, it has to stay up so that everybody can kind of use that as deductive logic to see what you might have in your hand at this point. But it's a really fun game. It has beautiful artwork as well. This is from, I believe, 2022, I want to say. And it's one of the first games that I started playing as I was getting back into getting out of working in the industry and getting back into the content creation thing. Yep. So, and it's really struck a lot of chords throughout the years so far. So I've really enjoyed it. That's my number 8, Valbara.
This is a really nice game. And it is, knowing that each of your cards has a different ability, is quite fun. There's a lot of good fun there. Cool. That is a good game.
Yeah.
My number 8. Now I did struggle not putting a bunch of lane battlers on here because they're good card games. So there might be a couple that have slipped in. But my number 8 is a beautiful game, very bright, very vibrant, from Roxley Games, and it's called Radlands.
Ooh.
In Radlands, it is a lane battler. It's you versus one other player. It's 2 players only. Each of you get 3 bases. And you have the possibility of putting a couple of troops, a couple of units in front of your bases to help protect them. Your bases are going to have special abilities. You're going to use water as a resource. And basically, you're going to do a lookout phase. Everybody gets to draw a card. Then you're going to play with as much water resources as you have to play down cards. If you already have cards played down, then you can activate them to attack the other player or to set up. And there are these cards that are like bombs or like events, and you have a time tracker on that. So basically, if it's a big event, it might sit at the bottom of your time tracker, and then it might take 3 rounds or 2 rounds before it pops off. So the other person knows that in 2 rounds, this really nasty thing's going to happen, and they have to try to prepare for it. So it's really cool. The other cool thing about it is they are kind of multi-use cards. They're not really multi-use, but you can either play them down face, for their value or for their special ability or for the character that's on them, or you can use them as a discard, and there's a discard ability or benefit. Or if you want, you can actually turn them and play them face down, and they become like a wild character, and they only really have one health, and they're really weak at that point. But they're cheaper and they're easier to get out and stuff like that. So there's a lot of really cool things that goes on in Radlands. It's a beautiful game, and you're really just trying to destroy the other person's 3 bases, which is easier said than done sometimes. So that's my number 8, Radlands.
Cool. My number 7 is a 2-player only card game, and I know I already had Lord of the Rings Duel from Middle-earth on there, but I kind of tried to stay away from 2-player only games as much as I could. But this one is really good.
I didn't have that problem.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you have to. It's just something that I was kind of wanting to do. And when I play a card game, usually I want to play a card game with a number of people. Maybe it's you're closing out the night, or after playing a bunch of bigger games, you just want a chill, play some card games before everybody heads home. That's the kind of thing that I usually think of when I think of the word card game. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't have to be. It's just something that I was, an arbitrary thing that I did for myself. But 2 of them did get on there. The one was Lord of the Rings, Duel from Middle-earth, and then this one is called Jekyll and Hyde versus Scotland Yard. And this is a great little fun game that has a neat little thematic story flair to it. But all you're really doing is you're changing the rules slightly from chapter to chapter as you work through the game. But it's really just a game that trick-taking game where 2 players each have their own decks, Jekyll and Hyde, and then you also have Scotland Yard, which has their hand of cards as well. And so it's a 3-player, although nobody plays Scotland Yard's deck. Mm-hmm. You just kind of flip over a card to add it to the hand that's played. But you're trying to get Jekyll and Hyde as far along this path and stopping on a specific point on the track before Scotland Yard catches it. And if you overshoot that last spot on the track, well, then Scotland Yard gets to move over. And if Scotland Yard overtakes Jekyll and Hyde, well, then you've lost.
You lose.
But the really cool part of it for me is that it has that, it's a trick-taking game, but it's a story-driven almost. But again, I don't want to overstate that. It's just that's the thing that kind of hooked me, is that each chapter that you play through has its own little thematic flair to it.
I don't remember that.
No, yeah, it changes. Each little thing changes. They
have a different rule.
Each little change, and there's a story behind why that rule is instilled.
Oh, gotcha.
And that's a cool thing that I thought was neat about it. So that's my number 7, Jekyll and Hyde versus Scotland Yard.
Nice. Well, my number 7 is in the same thought process of this game, and actually Jekyll and Hyde versus Scotland Yard and Jekyll and Hyde I didn't put on the list because of all the parts and pieces that come with the games, but I put its compatriot or companion game on there, although they're not made by the same people, and that is Fox in the Forest. Now, Fox in the Forest Duet has a board and pieces and stuff like that, but in Fox in the Forest, it is a 2-player trick-taking game, head-to-head, just like Jekyll and Hyde has a head-to-head trick-taking game as well. And Fox in the Forest is a 2-player trick-taking game head-to-head, and there's a couple of interesting things that happen in there. For one, every odd-numbered card in the deck has a special ability. So there's a lot of different. Each of you are going to get, I think, 13 cards. I think it's 13 cards in your hand to start. And then there's going to be a discard pile, and then there's one of those is going to be flipped over, and that's going to be trump. And obviously there's ways in your abilities to change what trump is, to make you swap cards with the other player, to like you said, to swap a card with the trump card, to do all kinds of things. Even if I lose, I still get the trick, or if you add a 7 in there, you get an extra point. So there's all these different crazy things that the other person can do and you can do with your numbers, right? Which is really fun. The other thing is you have to either try to be, ideally, you're either going to try to win. Now there's 13 tricks. If you win 0, I think, to 3 tricks, you get a full 6 points. And if you win 7 to 9 tricks, you get a full 6 points. But if you win more than 9 points, there are 9 tricks, you lose points or you get less points. And then everywhere in between you get less points. So you're either trying to get that 0 to 3 sweet spot or you're trying to get the 7 to 9 sweet spot so you can get the most amount of points. So there is a balance of, I don't want to take too many tricks, but I want to take enough. Because if you get 6, then I think you only get like 2 points or something like that. So there's a big difference, and you're really trying to get that. So it's quite fun. It's quite intensive. It's quite thinky when you're playing against one other person. So 2-player trick-taking games always kind of, they're always very interesting anyways, the way they make those work.
Well, so, it was largely, Fox in the Forest was one of the first of them, I think. But it's largely one of that kind of category where you're like, trick-taking games shouldn't be 2-player.
Yeah, it can't work 2-player.
But that wall was broken.
Yeah, it was broken.
And it shows pretty well now.
Yep.
I have a feeling you're not going to like this one.
Probably not.
But
I might like the game.
This one, yeah, you probably will. Matter of fact, I know you do. But this is definitely a card game. You play it with cards, but it's not, your normal fare of card games. But it's nothing but cards, except for a few other pieces that you use to keep score of points and all that kind of stuff. Different elements. But this one's called Stone Spine Architects.
Oh.
Stone Spine Architects is you're using your cards, and your cards are these different rooms in your tableau, and your tableau is a dungeon that you are creating for a client so that they can have adventurers go through and all that kind of stuff. But you're putting in different elements of that dungeon. So the kind of rooms are the different cards, and the cards are going to be, the layout is 4 columns by, I believe, 4 columns. It's 4 by 4.
Yep.
And you have an entrance, you have an exit, and a couple of the things that you're doing is throughout the game you're going to be getting gold cards that are going to give you extra points for having the most of this kind of element, or a different sets of these other kinds of elements. And you're also trying to match up the entrance to the exit, and if you can do that, then you get a lot of points at the end of the game as well. But you're basically just using your cards to construct this 4x4 dungeon, and throughout the game you're picking up 3 different specific scoring cards that are going to score different elements of the game, and then you're getting points for a secret element, I believe, that you had at the beginning of the game. Everybody's given one at the beginning, and that's kind of like a blueprint that you're shooting for, and how well you stick to that blueprint will give you more points as well. It's just a really fun game. It's got beautiful, it's very well done. Jordy Allen, I believe, or Aden. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure that's the designer.
I
but
love it. Yep.
Thunderworks Games, they did a great job. This is one of the games that I would love to play. As far as hey, let's just play a card game. Probably wouldn't be that fair of end of the night, like I was saying earlier. But somebody just wants to play a card game. Let's play this one. I like it a lot. That's my number 6. Stone Spine Architects.
Love the game. It is a great cardboard game. All right.
Cardboard game. You're using cards.
It's a board game.
You're using cards. There's nothing but cards in the game.
Hey, my rules are not the right rules, but they're my rules. Anyways, all right. Well, my number 6 is another head-to-head card game. Like I said, a couple of them got in that I just couldn't shy away from. And I only think I got 4 2-player games in here, so 4 out of the 6. And my last one on this list is Star Realms. We talk about Star Realms a lot, but Star Realms or Hero Realms, or even the Cthulhu one. I can't think of the name, but that one's quite fun, actually.
Is that one Don't Mess with Cthulhu?
No, it's called Cthulhu Realms. What am I talking about?
Okay,
Cthulhu Realms.
Stupid.
The interesting thing about Cthulhu Realms, not that I'm way off topic, is there's no words in Cthulhu Realms. So everything's just icon driven, which is really quite cool because you don't have to, everything's
language independent.
Language independent. There you go. But anyways, back to Star Realms. Star Realms is a great game. It is a head-to-head. You're just trying to beat the other person's health down. You have a card biro in between you. You're going to gain the ability to buy and purchase cards. You're going to gain attacks. You're going to start building up bases and things like that can help defend you. There are 4 different factions in the game, and as you collect those different factions, they will chain together to do bigger and better and more wonderful things, but you're just trying to hammer down the other person's health and see who wins. So I love Star Realms. It's very quick. Like a pack like that, you walk around with it, you drop it on the table, you shuffle, and you go. So
coolest thing about this one, I think, is that your strategy kind of builds on itself as you play the game.
Yeah,
you start with what you have in your hand and what's in the market, and you're like, okay, what should I go for? But usually it's some kind of synergy between 1 or 2 different colors. And of the cards that are in the deck.
And that really does change game to game, depending on what you get to start with.
Absolutely does.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a good pick. Good pick. I almost had that on my list, but it's not there. I've really cooled on Star Realms.
Had to put some board games up there first.
No. All of my games are card games. Period.
Yep.
Hard stop. Anyway.
Agricola, the card game.
No.
You said there's a lot of words in that.
There's not going to be Agricola in my lists. We'll talk about weight right now. Did you get that?
Yeah, weight's really light on card games.
Yeah, weights are really light on card games. My heaviest was a 2.33, and my lightest was a 1.44.
Nice. You beat me on both. My lightest was a 1.36. My heaviest was a 2.25.
What?
Yeah.
I had the heaviest game on the list.
You had the heaviest game, and I had the
Jekyll
lightest.
Hyde versus Scotland Yard. That was the heaviest one. My average for this list was a 1.92.
Mine was a 1.85. You beat me.
Yes!
Burn it.
Finally!
Cancel the video.
All right, well, we're going to get on out of here. You can, at this very moment in time, stop this video and go over to the Flipside. That's where we usually do content creation here on the interwebs, and watch the top 5 card games. I'm going to have more card games on my top 5.
How many board games are going to be in there?
None.
That's the question.
They're all card games. All right, we'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care now.
We'll see ya.